everyone. This is Sunday Night MTG. I am Jeff the Mind Sculptor along with
Polytacos.
And tonight we have a budget deck here for you and your local community players.
Yeah, this is Mono Blue Tempo. This is 65 bucks, and the great thing about this deck is that you can take it to your local F&M and have a really good time with it. It's got a chance to beat every deck in the format.
All right, and I see that it's my favorite color, which is blue.
Yes, definitely. It's mono blue, so that's where the that's the easiest way to cut out or to make sure that this deck is gonna not cost $1 million, is that we are only running islands in this deck.
Now, is it just basic islands, or do you have any other like blue lands in there? Or
Nope, pure islands. We have 21 islands. That is our mana base.
21 islands. I love it. I love it.
And you know, in most budget decks, you play only basic lands, or you play mostly basic lands purely for money's sake. But it's actually a benefit in this deck. Yeah, the card that's going to help you win your most games and get in and smash face the most, and the card that cares the most about islands is definitely Tempest Djinn. This card costs 3 blue mana to cast. So first of all, in an all blue deck, it's a lot easier to cast. You don't have to worry about your mana restrictions, your dual lands, or anything. And Tempest Djinn is a flying djinn that is a 0/4. Tempest Djinn gets +1/+0 for each island you control.
So on turn 3, it's a 3/4.
Yes, you get a flying 3/4 on turn 3 in a blue deck, which is pretty good. Where Tempest Djinn gets a lot more important is turns 5 and beyond. When you get 5 islands down, or even 6, you've got a 6/4 flyer for 3 mana, which is a great deal and kind of a reason to play this deck. Go ahead.
I am noticing that it's the only rare in the deck too.
And that's why we stay pretty comfortably in a good budget here. And this is a great deck for anybody who's gotten out of Magic for a long time, and is a kind of skilled player, but doesn't know where to jump back into Standard. And if you know you like islands, you know you like counterspells, this is a very comfortable home for you.
Well, I love mono blue. I run blue in Commander, and I'm a fan of counterspells. I'm a fan of wizards, and this deck has just got me written all over it. So, what is the your curve at your mana curve? Where does it go to?
So we curve out actually in the main deck. We curve out at 3. The 21 islands. We can't really afford too many expensive spells. We have 1 card that costs 4 mana in the entire 75. We'll get to that one a little bit later on. But we need to stay pretty comfortably under 3 and 4 mana just to be able to keep the ball rolling and to keep the engine rolling, really, and to keep our lane count low. I guess we can talk. Go ahead.
So how many 1-drops do you currently run?
That's a great question. Okay, so right now this deck currently runs 9 1-drops.
Okay.
We've got 4 copies of Siren Storm Tamer, which is our Siren Pirate Wizard. In Ixalan, it has 3 keywords or 3 creature types on it, and it's also a flyer. That'll be a theme in this deck, is we have a ton of creatures that are evasive. They get around your opponent's threats, get in for fast damage, and before they even know it, your opponent's on their back foot. So Siren Storm Tamer is a 1/1 flyer that you can pay 1 blue mana, sacrifice it, and counter target spell that targets a creature you control, or that targets you or a creature you control.
Or an ability. It counters as target spell or ability.
Yes. So the cool thing about Siren Storm Tamer is that it's what we would call the tech in this deck, because it stops so many things. Like if somebody's trying to kill your Tempest Djinn, if they're trying to lava coil it, or if they're trying to send a lightning bolt to your face, or a lightning strike, I guess we're in Standard, to your face, Siren Storm Tamer is a layer of protection against that. Nice. It's really, really good.
What's our other 1-drops?
Our other 1-drops are Cloaked Herald. It's a 1/1 that can't be blocked. Doesn't seem like a lot, but as we explain the deck a little more, you'll come to find out that evasion is kind of how this deck gets over. And 1/1 for 1 is really, really nice. The other reason why it's good to get that is that our curve is really important because we want to get our draw engine online early. And having a 1-drop on field is super important turn 1 and turn 2 at the latest to have some action. So that's why we have 8 1-drops, and then we have finally a brand new card to the mix out of Ravnica Allegiance, Benthic Biomancer. Benthic Biomancer is a 1/1 for 1 blue mana, and it's a creature that's also a wizard. You can adapt it. You can play 1 blue mana and 1 of anything to place a 1/1 counter on it. If you do that, you actually loot a card, which means you draw a card and discard a card.
Not bad.
Yeah, it's really cool to get a little more value out of a creature, but even if it's about to die, you can pay a mana and cycle the card if you need to. Or if say they put down a Chain Whirler. We don't like to see Chain Whirler because a lot of our creatures are real small, but if we have Benthic Biomancer, we can stick to a counter on it, and it can survive that Chain Whirler ETB effect.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. So 9 1-drops, and how many 2-drops we're going into now?
So we're actually a little thin at the 2-drop spot. Our only 2-drop creature is Merfolk Trickster, which is a really, really great card. It's a great tempo card. Obviously, the name of the deck is Mono Blue Tempo. How we beat our opponent is getting in for exact damage and slowing them down just enough for us to stay alive. Trickster helps out with that. It is 2 blue mana for a Merfolk Wizard. It has Flash. When it comes into the field, or when it enters the battlefield, tap target creature an opponent controls. It loses all abilities until the end of turn.
Interesting.
This is a great card. This is a great meta card. I'm running 4 of them because there's a lot of cards that really have abilities that take over the game. Especially early drop cards like, for example, Wild Growth Walker. I'm sure you've encountered Wild Growth Walker lots in your standard time. It's a really unassuming card, but it has the ability to take over a game very easily because they go Wild Growth Walker and then they explore twice. Before you know it, it's got 1 million counters and it's taken 1 million life and you can't kill them and it's a sad day. Well, Merfolk Trickster is great because instant speed. It can come in, tap down their Wild Growth Walker, and it takes away all of its abilities until the end of turn.
Interesting.
So if something explores after it, it doesn't gain life, it doesn't get counters. Another great thing about this card is it takes out flying. So say they're coming at you with an Arclight Phoenix, and you're dangerously low on life. You cast your Merfolk Trickster, instant speed, it takes away the flying, brings that Arclight Phoenix down to earth, you block it with your Merfolk Trickster, you don't have to worry about that Arclight Phoenix anymore. So essentially, we found a 2-mana kill spell in blue, which is really, really cool. Blue doesn't typically get removal spells that often.
No, it doesn't. Unless you count counter spells as removal spells.
Exactly. Merfolk Trickster feels like a removal spell because it can take care of something already on the field. All right.
What else we got?
Let's move on let's keep in the creature realm because that's how we're dealing damage and supposedly winning the game. We've already talked about Tempest Djinn, our 3-mana 6/4 sometimes. That's pretty nice. Our last 2 creatures in the deck are Exclusion Mage. Exclusion Mage is a 3-mana 2/2 that when it enters the battlefield, it bounces a creature to its owner's hand. That sounds super unassuming. It's a pretty vanilla ability, you'd think, but this card wins me more games with this deck than just about any other card. Because we get into turn 4, 5, and 6, they put down their Doom Whisperer or their big threat that you don't want to see anymore. Well, Exclusion Mage will get rid of that threat and let you get in for lethal damage. Also, it can sort of answer a Niv Mizzet without being an instant or sorcery, which that's kind of what you want with Niv Mizzet because it's not going to ping down the rest of your board. Right. You can send their Niv Mizzet back to their hand. it feels like a time walk because they spent their entire turn casting Niv Mizzet, and you got rid of it for 3 mana.
Nice.
That's pretty good.
All right, so if we're done with the creatures there, now let's move on to the non-creature spells.
Yeah, so the reason why we play blue, at least the reason why degenerate players like me play blue is because we like to counter things. And this
Same
deck, right, yeah, of course. So this deck runs 7 traditional counter spells in the main deck. If you count Siren Storm Tamer, that jumps up to 11. So it's got 11 ways to counter your opponent's, 13 ways. I forgot about Quench over here. 13 ways to counter your opponent outright. So let's start with our counter spells. We've got Spell Pierce, which recently came back into Standard. It's just 1 blue mana to counter target non-creature spell unless their opponent pays 2. This card pays dividends against, early in the game, it can stop singleton removal, like your Lava Coils, your Cast Downs, all those cards kind of ruin our day. So you stop that with Spell Pierce. Later in the game, it stops your sweepers, your Ritual of Soots, your Cleansing Novas, things like that. Because normally they're not cast, they have to cast those on curve because we're hitting them so fast.
And as far as I know, Supreme Verdict is not in Standard right now.
No, it is not. And that is a card that would ruin our day. Another counterspell we have is Wizard's Retort. And this is the card that actually attracted me to this deck. It's because we have, let's see here, 4, 5, 6, 10, 11 wizards in this deck. So we can turn on our Wizard's Retort pretty easily. Wizard's Retort says counter target spell. It's 1 and 2 blue. To counter target spell, it costs 1 less if you control a wizard.
So it's cancel, and then it turns into a counter spell.
Yes. It's the worst counterspell in Magic, turns into the best counterspell in Magic.
If you control a wizard.
If you control a wizard. And with 11 wizards, it's a pretty good chance to control a wizard. That's actually a reason why I've added Benthic Biomancer to the deck post Allegiance, is that's another turn 1 way to have a wizard on turn 2. Yeah. So where we can counterspell them on turn 2, and that feels really nice.
Yes, it does.
We also, speaking of Allegiance, we've added from Allegiance Quench. We were lamenting earlier that sadly...
This is not Mana League, but it is Mana League for us new generation of players.
Yeah.
Mana League was, of course, 1 and a blue counter target spell unless the controller pays 3. This is now the same unless they pay 2.
Yes, it's counter target spell unless they pay 2.
Yes.
Which is still really, really good in Standard. In really competitive Magic, everyone is trying to play their stuff on curve. So this will get their Jaylight Ranger or whatever really terrible on curve spell that they're going to cast. It feels really good to counter a Ravenous Chupacabra with your Quench.
It does. Also, with your Siren Storm Tamer here.
Yeah. It can counter an ability and not just a spell. Exactly. So what you do is you let your Ravenous Chupacabra resolve, and then you say, in response to the ability, sack my Siren Storm Tamer. You don't get to kill my thing. Have fun with your 4 mana 2/2.
Unless you're returning it with the Tamer anyways.
Well, they can spend their 4 mana to kill my Tamer.
Yeah.
Go for it. And that's why this deck is actually kind of gets in around like mid-range, is that it's so efficient with its mana. It's so efficient with its spells. You just spent 4 mana to kill my 1 mana creature. You know, like you just spent, you hit your Vraska's Contempt to kill my Mist-Cloaked Herald. Like, just the trade-off of resources is always in our favor. And then that makes it out for all the counter spells. Moving on, we've got, this kind of acts like a counter spell sometimes, but it's super important in the deck. We've got Dive Down, which is 1 blue mana for a common. It's a target creature you control gets +0/+3 and gains hexproof until the end of turn.
That's crucial.
Yeah, this is another reason why the deck actually can survive, is because it protects its creatures so well. We've got we've got your Wizard's Retort, you got your Spell Pierce, you've got your Dive Down. Like, once you can get your creatures down, once you've got a few in and you're getting in for damage, you really have a lot of ways to protect yourself. Also, we've got ways to draw cards because we'd run out of gas really easily with being so low to the ground.
With being blue, drawing cards is an essential part to any blue deck.
Exactly. Yeah. Of course. And that's being blue players. That's kind of what we want to do. We always want to be drawing. We always want to be countering things.
We all can Sphinx Revs at all times. We all can do that.
Exactly. So, Curious Obsession is our only enchantment that we have in the main deck. It is an enchantment aura, and I'm already hearing the comments section groan. Yes, we are playing an enchantment aura in standard in a competitive deck. But it's 1 blue mana to enchant creature. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you draw a card. At the beginning of your end step, if you haven't attacked with a creature this turn, sacrifice Curious Obsession. So we always want to be attacking anyway, so we don't care about that third sentence.
Kind of like the Curiosity from Innistrad.
It's exactly Curiosity.
And that's still played today. So
Curiosity does see play, and I don't know, does Curiosity give you a pump? Does it give you +1/+1?
It does not give you a pump, but it's one of those cards you can put on End Visit, you can just go infinite damage, draw infinite cards.
Yes,
But 1 mana enchantment aura that lets you draw a card is always seen play in any kind of format. So I think that's a great help to this deck. It's a big bonus.
Absolutely, and the +1/+1 is extremely relevant too because there's a lot of spells that like to deal 1 damage across all creatures. There's a lot of spells that like to give everything -1/-1. So your little guys getting that +1/+1 pump really does help out.
And it seems like Curious Obsession is going to draw you a card about 96% of the time because you're putting on flyers.
Yes, that's where the synergy of the deck really starts to shine, is that a lot of these creatures are super evasive. We either have flyers or Cloaked Herald just straight up says it can't be blocked.
And with Curious Obsession on Cloaked Herald, that's an automatic draw card. Let's remove it.
Absolutely. And that's actually our strongest turn 1, turn 2 play. Our strongest turn 1, turn 2 is Cloaked Herald into a Curious Obsession with Dive Down backing it up. Nice. Because we have a way to draw cards, we're getting in for damage, and we have a protection spell behind it. And it feels great, and you feel miles ahead of your opponent turn 2 if you get that combination of cards.
It's pretty good.
Yep. So finally, we also have 2 Chart a Course in the deck because it's just a great it's just a great card draw spell. We're attacking anyway, so we're always going to draw 2 cards.
2 cards for 2 mana. They're like Chart a Course wins my queue because of that.
Yes.
And
yes.
It looks like you're not really discarding a card most of the time anyway, because you're always attacking. So 2 mana to draw 2 cards at sorcery speed, that's pretty good.
Right. And I tell people, if you're not attacking with this deck, you're probably losing anyway. So Chart a Course's drawback really isn't in this deck. And finally, I think we've gone over everything except for our one of Blink of an Eye. In our main deck. The reason why we have that one of Blink of an Eye is it's kind of our catch-all. It can, if we, messed around and got an Ixalan's Binding on our Tempest Gen, or a Seal Away, or any enchantment that looks to slow us down, exile our creatures, ruin our day in general. Blink of an Eye really works out well for us because we can get that off of our creature, get in for some damage, and hopefully, usually that's going to be around lethal that we can get when we get rid of their enchantment.
And with it being a 1-of, it might just blow them out and you may be able to win the game with it.
And for example, if you're against blue-black and they've got a Doom Whisperer, and normally that would be game because you can't swing in anymore because they've got this big 6/6 wall. But 2 mana can get you right in there. So
for 4 mana, it could get you in there and draw a card.
And draw a card, yeah. So Blink of an Eye has 2 mana, return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. For 4 mana, you can do all that and draw a card.
They reprinted Into the Royal.
Yes, they did. It's a functional reprint of Into the Royal. Also, the tech on Blink of an Eye is really great because you can, because Bant Nexus is coming back into the format. For those of you who don't know, it's a deck that seeks to abuse a 4-mana enchantment to take infinite turns, basically.
With Teferi, Nexus of Fate, I saw that being played today.
Yes, it's a scary deck, and it's a scary deck for creature-based decks. Your one of Blink of an Eye can go ahead before they move to end step, get rid of their Wilderness Reclamation, and then they just wasted their whole 4th turn. Yeah. And that's crucial against us because that's when we're trying to kill them. So yeah, that's the deck. We can move on to sideboard if we want.
All right.
So yeah.
One more question about your
Sure.
islands. Are they all the same art? Are you using the Bowl Islands?
I am quite vainly using all Bowl Islands in this deck.
Yeah.
It's my very since I've started playing, this is my favorite island art that's actually been released since I started playing. So it just felt appropriate to do the full art islands in this deck, even though I probably added like another $10 onto the deck just in adding the islands or something absurd like that. But okay, so let's move on to the sideboard here. So yeah, let's get all this stuff out of the way.
So it's a 15 card sideboard, I'm assuming.
Yes, right? Yes. We have a 15 card sideboard. I've actually contemplated going 20 islands in the main deck and adding an island to the sideboard, but I decided against that and just decided to be more, try to be more quote unquote competitive with the sideboard and just have all straight gas.
All right, let's go to the sideboard.
Cool. So I'll just run down through what we got here and we'll talk about each card as we go. First off, we've got Sleep, which is kind of like our deck's version of a sweeper. We don't kill all their creatures, but we tap them down. We don't have to worry about them for a turn. It's 2 blue, 2 other for tap all creatures your opponents control. They don't untap during their next untap step.
I noticed that when reading Sleep, it doesn't target. So will this put a Carnage Tyrant to sleep?
Absolutely, we'll put a Carnage Tyrant to sleep.
Love it.
Yes, that's the important part.
What else we got?
All right, so moving on, we've got our budget Planeswalker in this deck. We actually get to play with a Planeswalker here in our $65 deck.
Jace?
It's Jace!
Does it cost 3?
It does cost 3.
That's not really a Jace card.
It's Jace Cunning Castaway.
All right.
2 blue and another for a 3-mana Planeswalker. +1, your creatures, whenever one or more creatures gets in for combat damage, you loot. You draw a card and then discard a card. Helps card draw in this deck. And then -2, you make a 2/2 illusion. Sometimes you just want some creatures. And then it's -5, you create 2 token copies of Jace Cunning Castaway.
I play with that on Arena, and I've had like 5 Jaces out at one time. I've had so many triggers going off. It's like, this is bonkers. I'm just
Right.
It's fun.
Yes, it's super fun. This card comes in against control because most of their answers are going to be creature based, and most of their hate is going to be creature based. Okay. So Jace turns into a creature factory forever. So it's a way to get in for damage for the rest of the game.
The only deck I can think that this card will go into. Do you remember the Illusions deck?
Yes.
I mean, it's a Phantasmal Bear. Mm-hmm. He'd be great in that.
Yep, he would definitely work in that deck as well. So moving on, we've got 2 Essence Captures.
The new Essence Scatter, I like it.
Yes, it's 2 blue for counter target creature spell, and then you put a +1/+1 counter on a creature you control. It's pretty self-explanatory in our deck. We against creature decks, we just want to slow them down. We want to make our dudes bigger. It does all the things
and with
we
the
want.
1-draw Merfolk Wizard that has the adapt, I actually can let you draw additional cards.
Right, exactly.
Pretty good, don't it?
Exactly. So you don't have to pay the adapt. You get to draw your card. It feels like for free. All right. So then we've got a 1 of Deep Freeze in the deck. This looks a little weird in our deck. It's a 3-mana enchantment that just basically freezes a creature, turns it into a blue wall. The reason why this is in here is because Niv Mizzet is a thing in Standard. Yes, this is a non-instant or sorcery card that answers Niv Mizzet. It also will answer whatever big dumb creature that your opponent has that doesn't have except for Carnage Tyrant.
Yes.
Yeah. But it'll answer a lot of other creatures in the format. Metamorphic Alteration is a 2-of in this deck.
Right.
It's an enchantment aura. Target creature, as it enters the battlefield, choose a creature. Okay. Enchanted creature becomes copy of chosen creature.
So does that target?
No, actually.
So you can make your own Carnage Tyrant.
Right. You enchant your creature with this. You enchant your creature with this. You choose Carnage Tyrant. You suddenly have your own Carnage Tyrant. You call a judge over, and the judge tells you that you can actually do that.
Yes.
Because your opponent will be tilted because this doesn't actually choose a target. And that's how it gets around Carnage Tyrant. And that's also really fun, is where they thought their Carnage Tyrant was safe, and then it's not.
Carnage Tyrant.
Yep. We've got a 1-of Syncopate. This comes in against control decks. Also, it comes in against Bant Nexus of Fate decks. We want to counter their Nexus of Fate, and we want to get rid of it completely.
I have played with Syncopates before. It's a pretty good tempo counterspell.
Yep.
You can be flexible with it.
Yep.
So it could be for 1, it blows them out. It could be for 7, they're just scratching their heads. I like Syncopate.
Yep. And also, Arclight Phoenix is something we're worried about in Standard right now,
too. It does
too.
exile.
And it exiles their Arclight Phoenix, so we never have to worry about it again. Negates, classic.
We don't need to explain negates.
Yep, 2 mana. 2 mana, counter target non-creature spell.
Yeah.
We have a Sentinel Totem. Sentinel Totem is 1 mana for an artifact that, when it enters the battlefield, we scry 1. That's obviously good in a blue deck. But more importantly, you tap it, exile all graveyards.
Arclight Phoenix again?
Yes. Again, this is for Arclight Phoenixes. This is for Drakes. This makes their Enigma Drakes now 0/4s. Doesn't take care of Cackling Drake, but that deck hates losing its graveyard.
You can
regardless.
deep freeze the Crackling Drakes, though.
Yes.
There you go.
And you can deep freeze them, and a lot of their cards care about their graveyard.
Yes.
So getting rid of their graveyard slows them down tremendously. Disdainful Stroke is back in Standard. It answers a lot of the big scary things we're worried about.
Not Ned Mizzet, though, or Carnage Tyrant.
It doesn't get rid of those, but it does stop planeswalkers.
Yes.
All the important planeswalkers in format right now are 4+ mana. So Disdainful Stroke is a great answer for your Vivian Reeds, your Teferis, your Rawls, if you encounter Rawl. This also answers Eldritch Reborn, which is another card that is really good in Standard right now. And finally, we have 2 Diamond Mares in this deck. This is our artifact. It's a 2 mana 1/3 that, when it enters the battlefield, you choose a color. Whenever you cast a color of that spell, you gain 1 life. This is our tech against burn. So all the burn creatures only have 2 power, so they can't attack through this. And then every time we cast a spell for the rest of the game, because all of our spells are blue, we're going to gain life. So before we know it, we're going to be way out of the reach of burn to get to us.
Or getting back the life that burn took from you.
Exactly. Stabilizing Diamond Mare definitely helps out with that.
Now, what about the blue horse? Did you think about putting that in your sideboard?
The Surge Mare, yeah. I chose not to bring in Surge Mare just because it can only pump itself so much. So, a lot of people don't realize Surge Mare gives itself plus something. It's like plus X minus X. And before you know it, your Surge Mare can't attack through and to get through big creatures. Also, it gets super susceptible to removal spells because it's getting lower on toughness. I just didn't love it. I didn't love it in this deck. Another card I thought a lot about was Night Veil Sprite. Night Veil Sprite was actually in this deck quite a bit for a little while. Actually, just got cut, mostly because it's a 1/2. And at the time, Goblin Chain Whirler was a really big part of the meta, and being able to surveil one when I attack in for damage with my Curious Obsession felt really good.
And if you were able to do that, that would be a miracle, wouldn't it?
Right.
Just like this miracle up here.
just like that miracle up there. But that's pretty much the deck. That's Mono Blue Tempo. Like I said, if it's a very skill-intensive deck. It's for Magic players that have been, I think, been playing for a while and want to get back into Standard and want to be able to take it to their FNM and beat that control deck or beat that big mid-range
Not
deck.
have to sell blood and put a mortgage in your house to buy a deck. So.
Exactly. And it feels good because sometimes you draw more cards than control. Sometimes you're faster than aggro. Yeah. And you can't really beat that. For $65, you can't really beat that.
So you want to try your deck out in the game?
Absolutely, for sure. If you want to see us play this game, you want to see how this deck performs, you can click right over here. We're going to be playing, what are we going to play against?
We're going to play against blue-black control.
Nice! Let's play against some control. And you can click that, and don't forget to smash that subscribe button.